Tonight we have a special feature for all you viewers out there. This is a throwback to the past as we look at things our female ancestors did in World War II. Tess?
Yes, Maria, that was a hectic time. First up, we have our factories workers segment.
Women at home during the war did more than just victory garden and rations. When they got in their cars and pottered off, a lot of times they were not going to the store. They were going to factories to work on war products. Bessie Stokes didn't work. When she did, it was as a cleaning lady. She only made $2 a week. Bessie saw a war advertisement one day talking about how she could help the war effort by working. She didn't need to have graduated high school. She just needed to take a civil service exam. Bessie knew what she wanted to do in service of her country. So Bessie took the exam, and she passed. She became an ordnance inspector, and she did awesome work. She made more than 10 times what she used to, and she was being patriotic to boot. The type of work wasn't easy either. Some work was repetitive, like riveting, where 2 pieces of metal would be riveted together. Rosie the Riveter was a fictional character who riveted as a factory worker. Lee Turner Foranger was a riveter too, building B-17 bombers. Women in the factories made the planes that soldiers of America would fly. They had to be perfect. Most were. These women got new freedom. They got to wear slacks. They got to work. They got to make money to support themselves. Women made up 40% of the workforce during the war, and that's no small sum. They may have also tilled the ground, but their dreams followed the planes that their hands built into the war itself.
Oh, how great! And now on to a trailer for a movie based on the real life of a World War II spy called The Limping Lady.
Trapped in a foreign country. Working undercover for Britain's OSS. And risking her life every single day. They called her
La France était la personne des nazis.
Follow the journey of Virginia Hall, super spy, as she lives in France during German occupation. She began as a simple American clerk and became something more. Even after losing her left leg to gangrene and receiving a wooden leg, Virginia didn't stop.
I'm going to join the French ambulance service.
Even after her first trip to France ended with Nazi occupation, Virginia didn't stop.
I'm going to train as an agent for the OSS.
You're headed back to France, Diane.
Even when her appearance and wooden leg were known to the Germans, Virginia didn't stop. So enjoy the incredible adventure of The Limping Lady!
Elle est juste un vieux berger de mouton.
Next up we have the life of a whack, from recruitment to deployment.
This sure is interesting.
I know.
So you want to be a member of the Women's Army Corps, better known as the WAC? First, you would go to a WAC training camp like Fort Des Moines. Then, you would get a lecture about how you were reflecting your country's women and how you needed to prove that you deserved this chance. You would get a bed in the barracks that was bare and small. You would go through training, learning how to salute and follow military protocol. You would learn to march at the drilling ground. You would work hard. After your training was done, then you might go overseas or work a radio tower. You would be part of the war, an integral part, and you would do your best to serve your country.
Entertainers!
Entertainers in World War II were a larger part of the war than anyone would have suspected. Just after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, MGM Studios was enlisted by the government to sell war bonds.
Female stars such as Hedy Lamarr, Lana Turner, Dorothy Lamour, Marlene Dietrich, Olivia de Havilland, Claudette Colbert, Merle Oberon, the Andrews sisters, Betty Grable, Rita Hayworth, and Tamara Drazin all worked for the war effort.
Hedy Lamarr once sold $17 million worth of bonds in one day, with one kiss going for $25,000.
$50,000 kisses were Lana Turner's specialty. Dorothy Lamour was said to have sold $30 million worth of bonds in 4 days, plus $350 million worth through kisses, autographs, and appearances through the war.
Celebrities participated in canteens to boost soldier spirits. USO tours were friendly diversions, and celebrity pinups sent overseas were also valued by the servicemen. Whether you were a singer, actress, or dancer, you could help with the war effort.
That sounds good.
Have you ever heard about nurses, Red Cross girls, or volunteers? Well, get ready.
Because you're about to.
Not only did Red Cross volunteers collect blood, but they also notified servicemen and women of home events, rolled bandages, and made care packages. One job of these volunteers was to go to clubs to socialize with soldiers as a type of comfort.
Next up, we have a segment about the Japanese-American woman during World War II,
These women were very important, but they went through a lot of difficult times.
as you will soon see.
And now an interview with the daughter of an internee, Carrie Veerling.
My family was interned at the Minidoka, Idaho internment camp during the World War II internment days. My father and his family went there from around 1942 to 1945. And we just interviewed my father 2 days ago, and he told us a little bit about the camp experiences that he remembers. And the life of women in that camp were in some ways very similar to women during World War II, and in some ways very different. So what was similar was the fact that these women still kept their quarters clean, although they lived in barracks. They still tried to mend clothes and wash clothes and do many of the maintenance that many women did at home, but they didn't have an opportunity to do much outside of the camp. And so the camp was a number of barracks that were enclosed in some barbed wire fences, and there wasn't really many places to go outside those barracks. The families were allowed to leave the camps once a week towards the end of the war, and they could go to a nearby town and sort of explore and spend some time outside of there. But it was a little bit controlled, and so certainly I think the women of the internment camps were able to do some things that many women would do normally in their house, but they didn't really have an opportunity to work outside of the house like some of the women in World War II got to do, like Rosie the Riveter or some of the other women. So one interesting thing about how the internment camp experience ended for many families was that towards the end of the war, families were allowed to leave the camp if one person was able to get a job outside of the camp. And in my dad's situation, in his family situation, he was 10 years old in the camp. He was about 7 years old when they started, and then 10 years old when they left. So he couldn't work outside the camp. His father was sick, and his mother didn't speak English. And so the only person who could actually work outside the camp potentially was his older sister, who was about 20 at the time. So she left the camp, and she got a job at the Seattle Public Library. And because she was able to show that she could work and have a job outside the camp, the rest of the family was allowed to leave the camp at that point, and that was in around 1945.
And that is part 1.